Cool. So we are live. Um, okay, first of all, thanks Bharat for joining me today. I am live after a long time, and I'm really glad to have you today.
Hey Priyanka, lovely to be here. Yeah, it's been a while for you as well. But yeah, nice that we get to do this. Yeah.
Awesome. So, yeah, I think people are still tuning in. Whoever is already here, thanks for joining. We will be starting in, I think, in a minute or so. We're still waiting for more people to come in. People are joining in. We have around 15 people with us right now. And thanks everyone who's coming. I know I've been inconsistent a bit, uh, but yeah. So just the drill remains the same. We are going to talk about the topic today, which is automating intent driven outbound. I am going to cover what it is exactly in like 30 seconds or so. And all the audience over here, feel free to put your questions on the comments box, on the comment box. I will take it as and when, maybe if the question is contextual, I'll take it right there. If not, I am definitely going to take it towards the end. We are going to speak for what, 20 minutes, 20 25 minutes, and then the other 10 15 minutes is for the audience. So this should be the drill. Yeah, I think people are have arrived. I can like get started with this. So the entire topic of automating intent-driven outbound, actually, I'm getting reminded of my early sales days with Bharat. And what we used to do is we used to get all the information from all touch points like LinkedIn, website, I don't know, even Twitter or something, and then put it into a huge Airtable sheet, and then do all of our filtering, everything, and then go and then go and see buyer intent if they even want to, or they're even an ICP to reach out to, right? So this is like the context of why we are here today to discuss this. Spending time and prospecting the right accounts is actually a huge leverage, and all of this manual task can be kept aside, and the real focus could have been on the work when we did not have click, right? But solving this means teams focus is on the right prospect. You can scale outreach properly, and then obviously the sales engine is quite robust there, right? We did not have it when we used to do sales. That was like 3 years ago. But now I think with Clay and with Bharat, who's a clay expert, we are now able to like do that, and that is exactly what we are talking about today here, including how factors as a buyer intent signal provider can help us in this process, right? So I think enough about what my days of sales was, but I'll let Bharat introduce himself and what we are going to cover.
Thanks, Priyanka. Yeah, firstly, lovely to be here. And yeah, so I was with the early growth team at Factors, and I did a lot of sales work there, but more importantly, I did a lot of the sales ops and list building and trying to optimize our account list and data points so that then when four of us, five of us woke up each day and went to do our tasks, it was all sort of ready and waiting for us. And before Clay even existed, we were pinging different APIs, doing a bunch of filtering, trying to understand how can we spend the right, 6 hours on the right, the right set of people. And so when Clay came along, it was almost like a no-brainer
Hmm.
because it was just combining a good UI with what we all knew we needed. And yeah, it's been good fun. At Factors, I shifted to product management after that, and right now I'm helping companies use Clay and use growth automation tools so that they can focus on the right sort of accounts and do the work. And I think the icing on the cake is when you combine this with Factors intent. That's a key thing when we bring in signals across different places and then we plug it into Clay, it starts to become a whole other game altogether. So yeah, that's looking forward to sort of go deeper into all of that.
Right. So now that we've set base on how clay and factors can get together to give you buying signals that it sort of like meet meets Clay's bigger playbooks. So, just for the sake of context, Factors and Clay have a joint playbook. The link, I'll just link it post the session, or a little bit later. So, what we are going to first talk about is how to send real time buying signals from Factors to Clay. That's like the first question I would have as a salesperson or a sales ops person.
Cool. Let's do that. So essentially, as you might or might not already know, I think you think of Factors as a place that aggregates buying signals across a website, across G2 review sites, across LinkedIn activities such as viewing LinkedIn ads, the marketing programs that your teams are running. And so when you've aggregated all of that in one place, you can structure this in two ways, right? First, when a real-time event happens, you can decide to instantly pipe it into Clay. Or the other approach to do this is to create a segment within Factor. So if people who saw a LinkedIn ad and visited the site twice and got retargeted, now that is a very special, high intent segment, and it makes sense that when some company enters that segment, you want to push that signal specifically into Clay. I can share my screen now, and we can sort of look at how that looks like. So just give me a second.
Sure.
Yeah, can you just confirm if you can see my screen?
Yes, I'll just have to put it up. Yeah, I think this is fine. You just have to, yeah.
Cool. Awesome. Yeah. So for a lot of this conversation, I'll reference this playbook document that we've put together, and we'll be giving this away, and then you can just take this at the end of the call. But yeah, the core outcome that we're trying to see here is how can we pick up these signals, put them through a very specific playbook, and in order to actually like do that, it takes a set of steps. And as Priyanka was saying, we'll focus on the first step, right? And this whole conversation would be broken down into these modules. Right? How do we take that information and politically? How do we actually do a account research and qualification mechanism? How do we find the right contacts given all the blockers and all the data issues that come as a part of that? Getting the right contact data and ensuring that you don't get caught in deliverability traps. AI personalization, conversation, all of that stuff. Right? And so, Priyanka, I think you were starting off with how it actually looks like to push data into Factors. And to do that, if you have a Factors account, you basically just create a real-time alert. And when you create this real-time alert, you get to decide very specific um, filters, right? So when you have an anonymous company that you don't know who this is and they haven't filled out the form yet, the Factors is first de-anonymizing that, and then we're able to filter that, saying do they fit these criteria, or are they of a certain size that I consider that my ICP, um, and you can run it through your exclusion list. You can say that they came from a very specific campaign and so on. And then you can decide what properties to send. And when you configure this webhook, it actually just starts piping in into a Clay table, right, in your first column, and you get sort of live data coming in directly from Factors. So that would be the first approach, and the second approach would be defining a very specific segment. And if maybe we did something like this, you could create a new segment, and every time someone engaged with you with through LinkedIn, basis the filters you set, and every time someone new enters a segment, they would end up as a simple row, as a new record in your Clay table. So that's the basis, the beginning of um, um, on how you go about this. And I would say that the ability to do this is actually very simple with Factors. The
Hmm.
beauty comes when we sit down before we even start playing with tools to understand like what is our strategy here, like what sort of signals can we stack together and consider our high intent segment, um, and is there any high intent event at an event level that happens that you can directly create a real time alert for.
Got
Yeah.
it. Understood. Yeah. I think we covered on how uh, like this entire mechanism happens from sending real-time buying signals to Factors. Factors also sends real-time buying signals to Slack, to emails, etc. Now my main question is that how does this qualification mechanism actually works out?
Got it. Okay. Okay. So I think it starts once again by just like looking at your existing customers and um, looking at like having a conversation with your existing BTM team to understand like how do I classify my best fit accounts, right? And once you have that basic definition saying at least X people in a certain department, so if you're trying to build a martech product and you don't want an experienced marketing team, one obvious one is like I want to see companies that are less than 10 people in marketing but have a certain title, or companies with 50 plus employees, but they have not hired for a CMO or a role that uh, conveys a more matured org yet. So you want to have that conversation first, because if you get into clay before you know what you want to do, you will end up doing a lot of things, and you will feel good by looking at a fleshed out table, but it might not actually be achieving your purpose, right? And so a simple way to think about this that uh, I often do is this visualization right here, which I've shared my screen for, where you sit down and think like how large is the buying organization, how large is the overall team which decides the size of the org that you go after. Do they use specific tech? um, you know Company category is a very interesting one, right? Like if you have case studies on say 10 companies and you want to map every new account in your account list to say which is the most ideal case study to send to each of these accounts. If that can be done, that's something that I'm bullish on as well. And funding signals depending on. So these are some global things that everyone can do, and it involves playing around a little bit with existing tools you might already know, like Apollo. Uh, and there are many more niche ones that you can come up with. So, for instance, if you are selling sales commission software, then it only matters if this you know that there's an experienced sales leader and there are at least X sales people in that sales org, right? Now that the ability to take 1,000 accounts and find 100 that fit that criteria, that's where clay shines the most, I would say, right? So being able to power these kinds of things, and yeah, I keep coming back to this idea that like if you sit down and brainstorm and logically think about what you need to achieve, building it out in clay is the second and quicker half. So that's how I think about it.
Understood. And now that we have like maybe identified companies at place, right? How do we go about finding the right contacts, and then you enrich the emails of these contacts? There can be like more than five contacts in a company, right? How do you go about that?
Yeah, yeah. So firstly, one issue that everyone will know about if you're in the space is that like one provider alone, you will always run into one issue or the other, right? And it could be at the quality of information, like the emails actually not being correct. It could also be like not finding enough right contacts. So you might say, "Hey, I can see these roles, I can see these people in LinkedIn, but my Apollo does not show those." Or it could be the inverse of that, right? And so for that one, I'll share a look into a clay table for this, right? And one simple way to solve this is to actually say, um, ping different data providers one by one, and build your own sort of waterfall, right? So you can say search for certain titles in Clay's internal search, and if I don't find people, I will check Apollo next, and if I don't find them, I might check different databases that you're paying for that your org is already taking. So to build that out, it would look something like this. So let me just show you here. So I'm going to scroll to the right, and yeah. So currently the way I do this is by saying, which product can we programmatically pitch to each new company. We might have a lot of companies visiting the page, and we have two products that we want to think about, maybe our account identification solution and our ad pilot, which is the LinkedIn marketing assistant, right? Now, which one of these is this company showing interest for, and how can I find different roles of people based on what I'm going to pitch to them, right? So one way I would do that is to say, first start off by searching Clay's internal search, and I might have a different job title search string for that. So I'll just give this a second to load. And so here I'm looking at SDRs, RevOps managers, and roles that fit that title. And most importantly, I'm having a exclusion list to remove um, a lot of titles that don't match this, right? And this is done using a GPT script that I can sort of share later. And if we identify that someone wants to be sold account identification as a solution, we search for those sorts. But if we find out that they want the ad pilot solution, or the ad pilot solution is a better fit, then we instantly move to this other search string, which looks at more marketing oriented uh, search strings, right? So, and as a backup, we end up looking at Apollo. And what we end up having is three different searches, where as a default backup, we always end up having some folks to go to. But if there's a good fit based on the right product to pitch to that person, to that company, based on their, visiting our certain landing pages and so on, then we will only target them on that segment of that batch. Uh,
Understood.
yeah, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think that was quite comprehensive. Now, then we move on to the like sort of like AI phase, where AI personalization conversation phases. Then how do you think about connecting that to to the Clay sort of methodology? If there is like any chart or something that you want to show, I just want to know, how do you do AI personalized conversation phases? How to think about that, and then you connect that play thing into an outreach sequence, right? Do you have something written on the playbook as well?
Yeah, definitely. Firstly, just confirming that. So I just put on earphones. Is
Yeah.
audio better? Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
it's much. Yeah.
Okay, okay. Yeah, so for me, the way I think about it is that a good offer and a good a relevant timed approach is 1,000 times better than AI personalization. And even though we're all like, tinkering and thinking about AI personalization, I do think that in a world that AI did not exist, if you still had a good offer and a good you were pitching to you had a relevant reason to approach someone, and you were able to see them face to face and say, the only reason I'm here is because I noticed these things, right? That will win. And so all we want to do is to mimic that exact feeling, but with the tools we have. So I personally do not use AI to construct long strings of text. What I do is I start with the copy first, right?
Hmm.
I start with the copy and I write the copy, and I say, does this check those two boxes, right? Is that a really good offer? Like, if I show it to someone, does that make sense? Is that a no-brainer offer? And secondly, am I showing them that, like, I'm reaching out with a very relevant reason? So those two things, and it'll always be a game of experimentation and trying to figure out, like, for
Yeah.
instance, we keep every week we sit and we're like, how can we make this better? How can we switch this up? Right. Another place where AI comes in is if you have a very tiny piece of that first sentence, in that first previous sentence, or if you have important pieces where you want to reference things that show that you've done your research. Now that's where it gets really interesting, right? So, for instance, if imagine you had 100 accounts you're going after, and each one of them you're able to call out the fact that, hey, I know you guys sell to so and so ICP, right? If it was a sales commission company, you would say, hey, I know you sell to sales managers. And that would change based on each effort or each account in their outreach list. So
Right.
the ability to do those kinds of things, to have very specific variables that convey like a lot of research, that's what I'm bullish on. And that's where I would use a combination of scrape data and Claude's models or GPT's models to construct like a tiny search string. So that's how I would do it, Priyanka. Yeah.
Got it. Got it. Yeah, I understand. So this is how the setup would look like once that is done, right? Yeah, quite intuitive and quite filled as well. Like this is all the information that I'd ever need to get a shot at sales. So you mentioned that there has to be constant, experimentation, right? How do you have any ideas on how to think about iterating the same?
Yeah, actually, I mean, there are many ways to do it. Firstly, it's like everyone at the end of the day is trying to invest in a program like this so that you can see results. And so you
Right.
want to understand what kind of thing is at least getting. So can we first track people who got this effort and then later came and landed into your website, right? So I don't use open link tracking because I think that's harming deliverability. So, for instance, this week we're trying to iterate on the fact that can we set up a pixel that can collect the fact that someone received this automated clay email and then landed on the site and it inspired further searches. Right. So that is one. When I say iteration, that's like one addition on this effort, right? Secondly,
Got
from
it.
the copy perspective, how can we bring our subject lines shorter and get the first preview sentence to be uh, to show that this is something worth considering for, you know, the reality is that everyone who has access to these tools is adding to the volume in the
Yeah.
inbox, and so we're all in this I don't want to say zero sum game, but we have to think of like how we can break through that noise with being actually like authentic and relevant. So in trying to achieve that, there will be a lot of iteration. I'll show a couple of interesting like things that I'm thinking about though, right? So one was
Okay.
yeah, you
Are
should
you
be able to
sharing his screen?
yeah, you should be able to see it right now.
Yeah. It's coming up, I guess. Yeah. Yeah, it's on the screen. You can share.
Yeah, perfect. So yeah, so one of the things that we're trying to actually build, right, is you know, you might have many signals and relevance happening like across different things, but how can you map it to the right offer, right? And you could consider offer as one of your product lines. You could consider it as a giveaway. You could consider it as an upfront service that you fulfill using some AI backend or so on, right? But
Yeah.
if there are many signals detected and they're coming to a segment, how do you correctly map it to the right offer? So this engine can be built using Clay. It gets a little long, and so I'm trying to write an
Hmm.
API. I'm trying to write an API that can just be one column within a Clay playbook where uh, imagine like, you know, we've found a LinkedIn ad view, we found all this activity, we've seen that they compared us with competitors, and we know, and then we instantly figure out that uh, uh, they might need one out of our three product offerings, and we then go out with the right email plus LinkedIn combination. So that's one
Understood.
type of like thought or one type of iteration. Another one might be like at the end of the day, like I think a business is just like what can we say to certain groups of people such that we get their attention, and what is the right angle that we can say, right? So if you had CROs, if you had founders, and if you had different job buckets, how can we automate angle testing? How can we programmatically load them with different angles and then look at the results and understand that angle 2 works really well with founders, angle 1 works really well with CROs, and so on, right? So those kinds of things, I think, uh, I would, you know, I keep thinking about them, and when something comes up based on campaigns we're running, we keep trying to iterate on those lines. Um,
Got it.
yeah,
Understood.
that's yeah.
Yeah. So we have one question, Bharat. I think you should keep your screen shared. Can you explain the rows in the table? I think he's talking about the enrichment table from Clay.
Sure. Yeah. Let me just share my screen. Let's go into the play.
Yeah.
Uh, do we mean like, do we want to do like a full walkthrough of the entire?
Yeah, maybe that.
Maybe
That
we
should.
should do that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that should be okay.
Awesome. Awesome. So basically, what we're doing here is, yeah. So companies start piling in here based on intent detected on the Factors website currently, and we have some data points that are coming directly through Factors. And so right now I'm going to scroll through, so we're just seeing the information that we have, right? And so where this starts really is when we first get some information from Apollo, and each row. So just to be clear, each row represents a new record, a new company, and each new column represents either a data point that is retrieved from an enrichment. So, for example, everything inside Leom International, when we click in, it ends up becoming all these properties and fields, right? And you can
Hmm.
now take one of them and you can say add it as a column, and you can add a new column with their Twitter URLs.
Right.
So it's a glorified Google Sheet where each column can be a new API call.
Hmm.
Is how you think about it. And so yeah, so where this thing starts really is first we are bringing in keyword data that we are able to collect from that activity from that company, and we first put it into a new column and we collate this, right? Now, as you can see, it will easily quickly start getting messy. There are many things, there are many keywords, and you might have thousands of keywords, and we just want a simple way to map that saying based on this information we know. We want to figure out an entry point. We want to pitch ad pilot or we want to pitch account identification. So that was the first. That's the first part of this that has some like a simple formula going, right. And if I click on edit column in order to see how this looks like, we're basically saying if the keywords data contains certain phrases, then we come to a simple if else condition to say pitch account identification or pitch ad pilot. So that's a pretty simple formula in Clay, and then yeah. So based on this column, we end up searching for people data. Can we find them across three searches? And then we have a condition here that says, um, is this the one? Okay, no, this is just a quick validation check. Yeah. So at this stage, we have gotten to figuring out that these are the right companies. This is what product line we want to pitch to these companies, and we have found uh, reliably sort of had a way to find people streaming in from these companies. And now they all get pushed to a new people table, right? And if you know Clay, you know that there are people tables and there are company tables.
Hmm. Right.
Right. So moving on, the first thing here actually is that you will see that the job title string is really a noisy data set, right? You will have the same, like if you want to say CRO, a CRO will be called, uh, uh, you know, 25 different ways, right? Because the job title string is actually a variable based on how people consider it at that given time. So here
Right.
I have a simple formula that takes all of it and buckets these things into certain personas that we say. So a deputy director, sales and AI, etc., would come as a sales leader. A national sales manager would come as a sales leader, right? And we might have a generic marketer or marketing heads if they're senior marketing director. And this is very useful because you can now say different things based on knowing that this director of sales could have called their title in many different ways, but you know for sure it's a director of sales.
Right.
And this was built using a Clay formula that looks at the job title string and gives it a lot of conditional ruling and says if it contains certain words, then you want to classify it as so on and so forth. Uh,
Understood.
a director of revenue operations will be considered as our RevOps lead. Now, for each of these different, uh, you know, job buckets, we can reliably say that now let's test certain angles. So it makes it easy when you have a lot of people, right? So then moving forward, we use the detected interests from the org, and we what else do we do? Yeah, we also um, normalize the company name. So if you have a company name that is long, we want to be able to uh,
Compress it
yeah,
into.
yeah. So if this is a very long name, we don't want to put that into the email, right? So I've written a formula here that if something is long enough and is not conversational, then we'll just condense it and put it as sort of initials, right? At the same time, we want to camel case it and stay formal. So we do that, and now this particular thing will be one variable in a large email in a large email campaign inside your smart lead.
Right,
Now,
understood. I think that was, yeah,
hmm.
that was quite comprehensive, Deepak. I hope your um, question was answered. So yeah, I think I have. I mean, if there are any questions, feel free to put it on the comment section. I had one question, which is, how do you like? Do you have a flow where you show us an overview of the setup? Like, where do we? I mean, obviously we get data from factors, and then we pull data from a lot of other sources as well, right? So can you just walk me through that?
Yeah, sure thing. Let me just pull that up once. So maybe you're referring to like a high level, a
Yeah.
high level view of,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Let me just find the right image. Let me just share my screen.
Yeah. Yeah. 1 second. It's coming up. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So here you can see. So this is a very simplistic diagram just to represent the different parts, right? But the key thing here is that like clay is great, but when we combine it with those buying signals, and when the starting point is like defined by you, then all the effort is focused on the right accounts. And within the factors, you create all these segments where companies match very specific rules. And
Mm,
now the whole play kicks off. You know,
mm,
a company enters that segment, we push it to clay, we I've left it as Apollo, but as I'd shown you earlier, we're pinging multiple data providers in order to get some reliable contact data. And then if you have personalized AI phrases for tiny, uh, uh, tiny strings, then you would use the OpenAI or Claude in order to fulfill that request. And then you can pipe it back into Clay and then push it to your email outreach tool. So this is a very simplistic, high-level overview. And yeah, I think the real so after the initial setup phase, the place where the results end up coming is like how do you optimize on copy and how do you end up landing on the inbox, and we're still figuring this out, right? Like we keep
yeah.
making this we keep working on this every week to see like what new changes can we do in order to get more results than the last one. So this will be an iterative process, but it will be an iterative process until you reach that one point where all the tiny parts of the system are leading to a good result, and then you just want to flood it with good volume from the right sources and good account lists. So that's how that would look. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was quite comprehensive. We don't have more questions. Then we can like wrap it up from our side. If there are any questions, just shoot me a DM or shoot a DM to Bharat on LinkedIn. I have put the Clay playbook link on the comments. Just feel free to check that out and download the playbook from the link itself. With this, I think I will wrap up. Thanks, Bharat, for joining in, and thanks everyone who tuned in today. It was a long time since I came live, so and the next would be like some 2 weeks later. So just for just FYI. So yeah, that's all from my side. I'll just end the stream right now.
Thank you. Thanks, Priyanka. Yeah, it was lovely being here. Yeah.